Dear. Hi everybody, how are you? We were nattering. I'm sorry, I lost track of time. Welcome to everybody in the chat. Claire is here. I forgot to say, Claire, I love your hat.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's hat weather again.
Yeah, I'm wearing a hairband just to try and make my eyes look less hungover. Yes, I am hungover. I asked on Geek Chat 1 on Facebook if it was too early to wear I bought a Game of Thrones Christmas jumper, Claire, but I'm really hot, so I couldn't wear the jumper. Yeah. But I will try and wear it. Everybody agreed it's not too early, but I'll be wearing it next week, hopefully. Who is in the chat here with us? AJ's here. Hi AJ, welcome along. Sunny AU, how are you? Reese is here. Who else do we have? I think I got everybody there. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, I am wearing my Arya t-shirt. We have a lovely little cheeky Arya chapter this week. How did you get on this week, Claire? With the reading?
Not too bad. Yeah. I left it right till the end of the week, so it was just like today and yesterday I crammed in the 5 chapters, to be honest. Yeah.
And they were kind of long.
Yeah, there's a couple of them that I struggled with a little bit. I struggled with the Arya one, to be honest.
I struggled with John.
Yeah, they're even with Dany as well. Yeah, they're strange chapters, I think.
They are. It's a bit of a mixed bag, I feel. It feels very in between. We hit this in Feast and Clash, I feel, as well, where we had a group of chapters where it's just kind of buying time between action, I feel. And that's
I'm looking forward to I'm looking forward to next week because that's Jamie returning next week.
Yes.
So Jamie. Yes.
Yeah, so this week we are looking at the King's Prize, so Asha to the Ghost in Winterfell, and then next week we'll be on Tyrion 10 to Theon 1. So Theon is back as Theon, and Tyrion 10. I was happy to have a Tyrion break this week. I know, blasphemy, but I find Tyrion, it's not too bad. I'm trying to come at him from a different angle, but I don't like Tyrion in Dance as much as I like him in other books. We've said that several times. But yeah, we have the King's Prize, Dany, Jon, the Blind Girl, and the Ghost at Winterfell. I'm loving Theon. I'm living for Theon chapters this time round, I have to say. And I always enjoy Ash's chapters anyway as well, but Theon's chapters, they're the juiciest for me. I think just going into wins, it feels like, yeah, these weren't the cheeriest chapters this week either. I feel like I needed a pick-me-up this week and I wasn't getting it from
No, it's just this oppressive feeling of winter is coming, both in the chapters and in reality. So yeah, it's getting a bit cold and relentless snow in the books.
Yeah, usually we would have relentless snow at this time of the year, but not at the moment. It got really warm and rainy today, but anyway, we have the book club to keep us going. So AJ reckons that Theon's chapters are some of George's best writing in the book. Fantastic. I totally agree with you. But I have to say, I really like this Asha chapter, the King's Prize. So Claire, is Asha, is she a prize?
Well, yes, I think so. I think she is.
In what sense? In a sense that he can burn her, or in a sense that
he can use her as leverage, depending, because nobody really knows what state Theon is in at the moment. So that might come into play if there's some, you've got a Greyjoy, we've got a Greyjoy. I don't know whether it would make that much of a difference in this particular battle, but it could just be more that Asha is elevating herself, her own perceived sense of importance.
Well, she does say that she reckons Stannis doesn't realize what's going on in the Iron Islands because she's not, like, Euron isn't going to give a shit about her anymore. So
yeah.
But I don't know. I wondered, was Stannis kind of keeping her more or less to burn her, or just to have her as a bargaining chip for later? I'm not sure cognitively how capable Stannis is right now. It sounds like he's at death's door.
well, physically he's a mess, isn't he? They all are, you know, they're all dropping like flies. That cold count, which I'd kind of forgotten about that, but that's just, just absolutely awful. I think, well, this chapter is all about us thinking around the potential of Asher and the Iron Islands and the Greyjoys to ally with somebody in this battle. And it kind of sets up, like, we know that Asher is moving away from the old ways in terms of her culture, the Iron Islands. So she's beginning to think differently to how any other Ironborn leader would think. And she's, I mean, a father did bend the knee. She talks about that story about how Balon bent his knee to the wolf and the stag. So she's kind of thinking, oh, you know, maybe history is repeating itself, but she's definitely thinking, she's more open-minded in terms of who she may ally with. Whereas Theon's just, it feels like he's on the verge of giving up all the time, Theon. I think it's absolutely right. Agree with AJ that George does seem to, his writing is exquisite when it comes to Theon chapters. That just that feeling of being so, he's very good at writing conflicted characters. And Theon is he's the most conflicted character, I think, in the entire series, apart from maybe Jaime.
To the point where, like, it feels like George has either been very close to somebody that's been abused or has maybe experienced extreme forms of harassment himself. Like, that's how good his writing is with Theon.
Yeah.
Like, that part where he doesn't want anyone to touch him. It's like, it's just, it's like just the visceral kind of rejection of human touch is just, that's something I don't think
even without going down the road as far as like personal experience of like childhood abuse or anything like that, it's that feeling. I think it plays to humanity around, you know, we all of us have some sort of memories of times where we feel that we've achieved something or we've reached a peak or this was a certain, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of strange what's the word, like nostalgia with Theon at Winterfell. You know, like, this used to be my home, this is where I live, this was the best place I ever lived, actually. But at the same time, he's kind of, he's that sort of like, but do you know, I used to be Ironborn, do you know who I am, kind of, you know, I'm there. And then he, as soon as he thinks that thought, he scares himself and go, you know, you must remember your name, you know, Reek rhymes with weak. And I think that does appeal to that sense of, you know, something that you had that you valued in the past that maybe you didn't value enough at the time, but now you're looking back and thinking, oh, how do I even begin to pay for that or repent for that? Or you know, well, actually sometimes the only thing you can do is think of it, just give me an honorable death, just give me a heroic death, just let me go out where on a high, where, like, he's absolutely devastated at the thought of singers singing songs of his ridiculous, you know, the way that he won Winterfell and things, you know, because it was ridiculous. He took it off a boy. There was no fight, there was no battle there. It's an embarrassment. So he doesn't, I don't know, there's a lot at stake for both of them at the moment, both the Greyjoy siblings. And I think, again, there's that sense of entitlement in a way, even though they're Ironborn, with Asher, where it just progressively gets to the end of this chapter where eventually she's walking in the snow, you know, this waist-high snow, whereas previously she was in a reasonably comfortable baggage train, moaning about that, but then it's like, oh my God, get me back in the baggage train because this is horrific. And she's a warrior.
Yeah. And Asha, I feel like there's a lot of female kind of themes here in this chapter as well. Hi Elamore, how are you? By the way, guys, I just made some new mods in the chat. I hope you don't mind. So Yeah, just there's the interaction with Mormont is really interesting here. The description of the layers, and she's as wide as she is tall and all that kind of thing. And just the idea of prejudice within the North, but also beyond that, like the Mormont relationship. It sounds like they could be mates actually, only but for the fact that
mortal enemies.
Yeah, they've been raised as mortal enemies. It's a great position for Asha as a reader, for Asha to be in, because she knows a lot about the North, but not too much that you get a lot of description, like from her being observant, and she's not really allowed to interact with them and things like that. To the point where we might even get a Tormund Mormont pregnancy thing here. Is Tormund supposed to be the father to her children?
Well, there is talk of children, isn't there?
Yeah.
And one of my questions is about whether or not Asha will ever have children if she survives this, because there's a bit of a jab by Mormont where she's talking about, about being too old to have children, and it just kind of it just prickles Asha very slightly, to the point where you think, oh, this bothers her. This is something where she could get rid of Euron and install herself in a queen's moot or whatever as the rightful heir to the Iron Islands. Would she be having children? Would there be a lineage there? Because there is this there's this sense of potential around the Ironborn could continue to be a culture, but not the old way, and that she is this kind of new liberal progressive Ironborn, and that she can take things forward for generations to come. But will she even survive this trek? So I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Speaking of lovely ladies, look who's just joined us in the chat. Hi, Kat. We
Hello.
need to organise a hangout soon, actually. So yeah, it feels like it is like, obviously Asha wants to be more progressive, and she comments on how like Stannis sees women in this chapter as almost maybe not even another race, maybe a different species. He just completely doesn't understand women and has an aversion to women, which the way she describes it seems quite extreme. And I feel like Asha, of all people, probably the best, most unbiased person to describe that, having grown up on the Iron Islands, where men are quite like, where women are very strong, but men are even stronger potentially, like because they take women all the time. So her description of Stannis is the first time we've seen that kind of real aversion to women. And is that something that's happened since he met Mel? Or is that something that's always been there with him? I have a feeling he was always like that.
I've got a feeling it was always there. Yeah.
And I just wondered, what's that all about? Is that mummy issues? I don't know. But just this thing that like the division between women, and it's the same, like I'm teaching The Handmaid's Tale at the moment. It's the same in The Handmaid's Tale. The conflict and division between women is often because women need to survive in a world where literally rape can happen at any time. Like even in Arya's chapter, I think even when we'll get to that, but it just seems that it can happen at any time. Like Mormont hates Asha because it's really the men that come and take their women, and the fact that she gave birth, she must have been what, 10? 11 when she gave birth, maybe 12, but very young, very, very young. Just this, I like that George uses Asha to explore that, because he can't really do that with Dany, because Dany's queen. Like that's he can't really do that, but he kind of did it with Sansa in a way. But Asha is really, she might be a prize for Stannis, but she's not much of a prize for anyone at the moment. So she's she's just on a kind of a level pegging. But I think it was AJ that said that she's getting treated very well for a hostage. Like they're being very respectful to her, considering she's an Iron Islander. It's not just that she's a woman.
And she is trying to make an alliance with him, I think. We're just talking about him being scared of women, and she says to him, "Make me your man." And he just kind of like, you know, that's not, we basically forget all that Torrhen Square Cleftjaw stuff. We're going straight for Winterfell. So I think it's more, I don't know, I think he's probably worried that she may potentially upset his plans a little bit. I don't know.
It's strange that all of the Baratheon men, like the three brothers, all had very strange relationships. Like, well, not strange. I mean,
different.
Yeah, Renly's gay. So that's not strange, but he's gay. But then at the other extreme, like Robert is like super aggressively alpha, heterosexually male that just rapes and takes women whenever he wants. And then you've got Stannis, who's not even in the middle. He's just got this. He seems almost asexual.
Yeah.
It's so funny how we've got these three extremes with the brothers. Stannis is just awkward around women, reckons AJ. And Elamar says, Stannis is a very troubled man. He looks like his life is a chore. Yeah, absolutely. And AJ says she doesn't have respect for Stannis and recognize how determined he is. Unfortunately, she's betrayed by the fact that she's a woman. I wonder would he be treating her different? I wonder if it was Theon in this position, not Theon as Reek. I wonder if it would be different. I don't know. I don't know how. Maybe he's just keeping hold of her until he uses her. I can't see a way how he can use her later, but yeah. Anything else anyway from the King's Prize?
Well, there's this constant threat of sacrifice to the Red God.
Yeah.
Again, the religious divisions within this strange host of Stannis's. At the very beginning of this chapter, there again, and it's happened twice recently. It happened in one of Jon's recent chapters, Going Under the Wall, where they talked about it being as cold as the belly of an ice dragon or something. And in the very beginning of this chapter, Asher describes the host on this long march looking like a long steel serpent emerging from its nest. And I just thought there's quite a couple of heavy hints in recent chapters about us possibly seeing some, because I remember Tony Teflon used to go on about ice dragons all the time. We're definitely going to see an ice dragon, and now I'm like, this is quite interesting. This is happening quite a bit. This talk of snakes and serpents and things emerging from things, you know.
We get another dragon reference in Jon's chapter actually this week. But do you think it'll be an ice dragon or a whited dragon? I'd be interested to know what the chat thinks as well. Like, do you think that it's a nice dragon that's there, or will George give us like a hibernating whited dragon? Like, because I know he has said that his book, The Ice Dragon, is not in the same world. It might be the same universe, but not. I don't think it's supposed to be the same world. I believe that's what he said. I could be wrong. Let me know in the chat if I'm wrong about that. But I'm in two minds as to whether it'll be like a dragon that has been whited and needs to be reawoken.
Possibly, yeah. Whether or not we'll see an ice dragon I don't know, but I think we'll see some sort of monster emerging from something, probably underground from somewhere, and probably in close proximity to either the wall or Winterfell or some sort of tunnel that runs in between the two.
So did you get any further on Fire and Blood this week?
No, I've still only read the first 3 chapters. It's upstairs on my bedside table, just like, oh my god, I need to. The first 3 chapters are just
I can't.
Aegon and the 2 sister wives.
So did you Right. Did you get any Kraken references yet?
No, no,
Okay.
not anywhere near Jaehaerys or anything like
No,
that.
I
Yeah,
won't say anything.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
all right. Yeah, I don't know about the ice dragon thing. It'd be cool, but yeah. Thanks so much, Reese, for dropping by. We'll see you soon.
I did think this was also, again, as well as the religious divisions within this host, you've got very clear divisions that are kind of mirrored inside the walls of Winterfell as well. Northmen versus Southern men. So in this host, you've got the Northmen all cheering for we're doing this for Ned's girl, this is for Ned's girl, and they're kind of taking the piss out of everyone about, oh, this is just autumn, you've got no idea, this is like, you know, and the Southern men who were aligned to Stannis previous to all of this are like, what why, just remind me of why we're doing this again, what is all this about, you know, so that
some girl can get rescued.
Yeah. So things are starting to get really quite sinister, as well as this feeling that Asha has that everything's quiet, it all feels wrong.
It's a fair question. I mean,
towards the end, yeah, it is a fair question. What the hell is all this about?
It must be dead about 3 years at this stage, right? If not a bit longer. Not to say that we should forget him, but it is like winter is coming. Like they're in the midst of it. I don't know. It feels like it almost.
I don't think Stannis is providing good leadership either to be able to rally them around. You know, this is the realm. This is I need to win this before I win this, and they're literally just standing around going, "Should we start eating each other then? Should we start burning each other?
Yeah,
what do we
need
to do?"
It feels like they're almost sacrificing men to winter as the more they travel. Like the more men they lose. I missed it. Are they burning these men? Have they said?
No. There's talk of sacrifice to the Red God.
So I think there is creating an army behind them, basically.
Yeah, this is the build-up, isn't it, to later on whether or not, and again in the release chapter for Winds, whether or not Stannis is prepared to burn Theon as a sacrifice to the Red God, and whether or not that will help them in the battle against the Boltons. But I'm pretty certain that later on there is one of the Southern knights or lords. There's some cannibalism that goes on.
Yes,
which Stannis duly kind of punishes them for.
After this read, I'm leaning more towards Mel burning Stannis. I don't know why. Yeah. I feel like Stannis is going to go out literally in a blaze of glory. Right now, he's not the man that we met in Clash. He's very weak, but I don't know. I think I don't know.
I like the sound of middle little. I've never really thought about this before, but he does sound. I like the fact that he apologizes to Asha, not for fighting a woman during the battle, but for the names that he called her during the battle. And he's like, sorry about that.
Yeah.
Just battle and everything, you know.
But it is nice. It just shows the difference between. I think that's something Asha is going to learn from. Just the difference between, like, just the chivalry in Westeros compared to the Iron Islands. There doesn't seem to be that much there. There doesn't seem to be much honor among thieves, literally. AJ's just talking about how Stannis' lack of charisma isn't going to help him, and Sonny reckons he needs Renly's charm. AJ says, I think Stannis has something up his sleeve. I honestly think he will win the Battle of Ice. I think it will go very differently, but I feel like there's going to be like a couple of different factions. When we get into the Ghost of Winterfell today, we'll talk a little bit more about that, because I'm more confused
I think there's some foreshadowing in this chapter about the frozen lake that swallows the men up.
Yeah,
you know, you don't know what. It's waist high snow. The trek is really intense, and you're walking on frozen ice, a frozen lake without realizing what you're doing if you don't know what the location is. And again, Theon points this out when he's at the top of the battlements at Winterfell in the Ghost of Winterfell chapter. You can't see anything. It's just white. It's just all white. So what direction are you in? Where are you going? What the hell? You know, there's no landmarks for you to be able to judge the distance or where you are. So yeah, you could step on a lake and that's it. I think this is foreshadowing for exactly how the Battle of Ice will be won.
So
yeah.
Do you think George has created a problem for himself in making Northern Autumn so extreme? Like how will winter look? Like what will winter look like? So like there's a thing that it gets too cold to snow, so it may not be snow, right? We may just have compounded ice or something. It'll be like the Arctic, almost. Like there'll be snow, but it'll be a lot more ice based. I wonder, is that something that he's struggling with? Because clearly, like, I felt like the description of snow it's so well done in this chapter in particular, that it has to, like, obviously he grew up, I think he grew up in New York or Jersey or somewhere, so he would know snow. Like he would have seen a lot of snow growing up, so he's obviously very like used to like knowing what it feels like and the texture of it and the cold of it. And but as the Northerners are laughing, saying this is just an autumn snow, it's like, Jesus Christ, how much more extreme can it get? I mean, I've been in New York in one of their worst blizzards and it was pretty extreme, but I don't know. It just, I wonder, like, I know he's talked about there being problems with brand chapters and with tying up loose ends, but I think at some point there might be a problem with setting maybe as well. I'm not sure, but yeah. So that is the King's Prize.
Yes, I'm just, unless a couple of dragons come over and just melt all the snow quite easily.
Yeah, I think
water, a lot of flooding, and then we'll have a situation like the Neck.
Yeah, I think the ice is going to be the problem, not the snow. I think, like, he's described the snow now, like, and there's as much snow as they could possibly deal with. I feel.
Yeah.
When it comes to the ice, that's going to be a whole different level. Ice is so much worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then. We have a wedding
really quickly. I seem to it must be the next chapter when they're leaving and going to, I think they're going to the fighting pits, aren't they, for some sort of ceremony.
Yeah.
But the actual marriage itself happens really quite quickly.
Yeah, it does happen quite quickly, and okay. I have a question, because I have read Fire and Blood, and this isn't, I'm not going to get into spoilers or anything like that, because this is all out there in the world of Ice and Fire. Anyway, I have a question about the Targaryens and their lustfulness, because it's an issue with later Targaryens in particular. We even get reference to it with Aerys in this chapter. Is it me, or do Targaryens get uncontrollably horny when they're not around their dragons? Is there something to do with how lustful they get? When
maybe, yeah, maybe it's some sort of symbiotic mojo going on there.
Maybe, yeah, because the later Targaryens, as the dragons are dying out, there's a lot more problems with lust.
So they're tempered by their dragons.
Maybe. I mean, there's there may be some sexual bond there. I don't know. But the other reason why she's so lusty, what the hell does she do all day, Dany? Because she hasn't held court in weeks or whatever it is, in ages, right? And it sounds like she's just hanging around waiting for Dario to show up. It doesn't sound like she's doing very much. Am I being cruel?
Yeah. There's a couple of. I really didn't get a great deal, to be honest with you, from this chapter. It's the last couple of nights with Dario. He talks her into, again, it's the kind of setting up her meeting Quentin and everyone. You know, he talks her into meeting these Westerosi windblown. But I mean, there's all of that in that chapter. The Dornishmen reveal themselves, but there's other things going on here as well. The fact that Missandei just creeps around everywhere. She freaks me out, the way she just arrives on the page, and it's like, oh, where did she come from?
Yeah.
There's this resignation from Dany that she kind of has to do her queenly duty. So whether or not she's just getting this Dario thing out of the system, knowing that, you know, as much as I'd want this and I'd like this and I'd, you know, I could never marry you because of this, that and the other, she's just getting it out of the system. But she knows that she has to take this responsibility of this marriage to try to broker peace in Meereen. But there's so she has a dream after she's had this session with Dario at the beginning of the chapter. She has a dream where she dreams about, and because I've always thought, where does this theory come from about Dany, about Daenerys being with like the ending up with the Night's King?
Yeah.
Well, I guess this dream where she dreams about it's kind of Hisdar, but not Hisdar. And he has blue lips, and that he's cold. Like when he enters her, it's this freezing cold. So it's like, oh right, okay, that's a very strange dream to have.
Yeah,
the night before your wedding. Yeah, there's and the conversation that she has later on with Barristan, where he says, if she asks him if my parents could have married anyone for love, who would they have married? So that's an interesting conversation. But apart from that, it just seemed like a very quick setup and then a very quick wedding. He washes her feet and then that's it. They just get married.
Yeah, that was a very kind of a Last Supper-esque nod idea. Is it is a Holy Thursday? Isn't that when you get your feet washed? Jesus washes the feet.
On Thursday, is it? Something like that.
Yeah, Jesus washed the feet of the prostitute Mary Magdalene and lots of other people. And yeah, AJ thinks that might be Euron either that she's sleeping with.
Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, Connie. Hi, Connie. How are you? Yeah, what was I going to say there about Dany? It's gone completely out of my head now. Gosh, there's something I was going to say.
Was it about Missandei creeping around everywhere?
Well, there is that too. There was yeah, I don't know what to make of Missandei. Do you think so? The Unsullied seem to be impervious to the Pale Mare. Do you think Missandei will be as well?
Not eunuchs. You have to specifically be Unsullied. But that's got something to do with the potion that they take, hasn't it? Like that prevents them from feeling pain and getting ill. But it also sounds quite magical as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, very strange.
Yeah, the whole wedding thing just seemed, I mean, we didn't talk about the big thing in this chapter, of course. Again, like, I mean, we should have mentioned it already if it's going to be important. Quentin showing up.
Yeah.
It's not important at all to Dany.
No.
She basically brushes it aside. Barristan, on the other hand, is that
this changes everything. Right.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just sit and reflect on this for a second.
Yeah.
You've got an army waiting for you in Dawn if you marry this guy. But it's like, you know.
Well, we have Barristan chapters coming up soon. Because I feel like she's not listening to Barristan. And thanks, AJ, you reminded me of what I wanted to talk about. Barristan, so he has the whole Quentin thing, but he's also trying to tell her about her parents doing their duty and all that kind of thing. And I just wondered, we'll get back to Quentin in a second, but her mother loved somebody in Stormlands. Do we know who that is?
No, a Stormlands knight. So not a lord, a knight.
Yeah.
I don't know who that would have been.
Aerys took liberties in the bedding ceremony.
And it wasn't, I didn't realise actually that Aerys knew Joanna kind of before Tywin knew her. So you know that sort of boyish rivalry between them, like first dibs and what have you. Actually, it was Aerys who was first interested in Joanna. Well, and then Tywin married her.
Well, Aerys and Tywin were best buddies, right? They were properly best friends. So I reckon in Fire and Blood we're going to get a lot more about that, right? Fire and Blood 2.
Right.
Yes, AJ will definitely come back to Quaithe in a second for sure, because that is quite interesting. But yeah, Aerys and Joanna, I mean, I've been on the opinion that Jaime and Cersei are Aerys' kids. I think there's a lot to suggest that could be accurate. AU made a comment earlier on about some theory about Stannis being Tywin's kid. Do you know this theory that MP had? AU said maybe you could tell us a bit more about AU, because I don't think I've ever heard
about Stannis being
Tywin's child.
That sounds bonkers to me. So it could be MP. I don't know.
I've never heard that before. Did I get that right, AU? Is that what you said earlier? Anyway, yes, we'll have to get into Quaithe and
it's
Quentin.
Important to note that, and again, this is just from Barristan's perspective, he felt that Aerys didn't, there were no feelings there necessarily for Joanna. He didn't love her. He wanted her, and he probably wanted her because Tywin wanted her. Remember, Joanna was the only thing that, the only sort of person that ever made Tywin smile, and that, this would have been well known at the time, or certainly picked up by Aerys. So it wasn't that necessarily, again, this is just from Barristan's point of view, but it wasn't necessarily that he was in love with her.
Yeah. Well, he
just had to have her so that it spoiled things for Tywin.
It's kind of like that with Dany and Dario. She's not supposed to have him. I mean, she describes him as being beautiful in this chapter. I haven't seen any description of Dario in the book that corresponds with the word beautiful. He may be striking, but beautiful seems a little bit of a stretch, Dany. Like this, it's like AJ was saying earlier on, like this lustiness might be a sign of madness in the Targaryen line. She does like lose her mind with Dario. She completely she just is completely obsessed with it, to the point where she's neglecting her queenly duties, I think. And Dario is the one that comes and says, listen, we have these Westerosi that want to come talk to you. Can you hold court? And she says that there's been such a backlog of cases she could barely handle it. Like, why is there such a backlog of cases?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we should talk about why she refuses Quentin, and she thinks about Quaithe, and she starts laughing, which, by the way, from the outside, because she doesn't explain the joke, makes her look mad, right?
Yeah.
To the Marinese, they're like, what the hell is she laughing at? What are you laughing at? Like the zero, there's nothing funny. And she's thinking about the prophecy, which I think, do you think she's completely misread that? The sun's son.
It's an obvious one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost too obvious. So, yeah, possibly she has misread that one. But she's also young and horny and has been tied up with literally Dario for the last couple of nights, and then along comes poor Quentin. And there's also that kind of like, oh, bad timing, mate. I'm literally getting married to this dude tomorrow, and it's all been set up. All of the nobles have thrown money at this, and this is literally going to, like, hopefully, create the peace that we need. So, yeah, just, nice idea, but just really, really bad timing.
Sonny says, I got the impression that she puts off Quentin for now because his Dara won't be her husband for long.
Maybe. Perhaps. Yeah. I mean, she says that he's too... Basically, she alludes to the fact that he's too young, although there can't be that much of a difference between them in age. There's very much that kind of like, no, she's a queen and the queen needs a man. But also, she's betrothed to somebody else, so... no.
She's 15.
Yeah.
And she's like the men she slept with are men, like they're proper like men. And then this spotty teenager turns up and says, "Oh, my dad said that we have a pact to get married." I mean, it's not going to set your loins alight, especially not a Targaryen. AJ says she kind of wants her cake and to eat it too with regards to Quentyn. Yeah, she basically says, "I'm going to marry his daughter, but I'll be back to you about Dorne." Later on. Yeah, it is a bit like that. AU says yes about the theory with Stannis. Sorry, I lost it. With Stannis and Tywin. What does he say? Stannis and Tywin lack a hair. I read heir for a second. Hair. Tywin was at the court with Stefan and Cassana. Oh,
that sounds like a kick, keys in a bowl kind of situation, doesn't it? The Red Keep.
Am I wrong?
I thought at the Red Keep.
I thought men inherited baldness from their mother's line. Is that just an old wives' thing?
Yeah, could be, yeah. But some of those old wives' tales are pretty accurate,
I thought that was the case.
I think that's just far too out there and makes no sense whatsoever. However, that line is not going to be in that chapter unless Barristan has said, this is the quote, "Liberties were taken during the bedding." That basically means Aerys impregnated Joanna.
That sounds more like a liberty though, right?
Yeah, liberties were taken during the bedding. During the bedding?
So the bedding, like they take off all their clothes. Like he does complain that he wished there was the Lord's right. He wishes that was there, and we do find out that from World of Ice and Fire that was very prevalent among Targaryens. In fact, people would actually, like the locals, would actually will the Lord's right because to sleep with Targaryen
doesn't mean that Aerys took the liberty of bedding Joanna at the wedding. It means that liberties were taken during the bedding. But what does that mean? Does that mean that Aerys got into Tywin's head, that he whispered in his ear that something? You could take this different ways, but if you just take the literal meaning, Aerys took liberties during that period of time when Tywin and Joanna were getting married, then potentially Joanna had a child where Aerys was the father. The question is, was it Tyrion or is it the twins? And I think it's, from my point of view, everything, the way it's been written, everything points to the twins being the Targaryens.
Yeah.
And Tyrion being nothing but 100% Tywin's son.
Master, yeah, 100%. 100%. I hate the Tyrion as a Targ theory. I hate it. It's probably up there in my top 3 hates.
Yeah.
I have to say. Barbara says, welcome Barbara, nice to have you here. Dany's mom was in love with the old knight Jaime puts in charge of Harrenhal. Can't remember his name, but he's very religious now. Bonifer? Is that AJ? Is that who you're talking about? Bonifer? Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. Excellent. Thanks, AJ. Thanks, Connie, for that. Baratheon said lots of hair. AU says, come on, you know what that means. I'm totally lost. I feel like there's so much chat going on. Proper man. Oh, hashtag proper man. Aha, I get you. Yes, the hirsute individual is, I mean, we're both married to hirsute men, aren't we? we definitely appreciate hashtag proper men. So prophecy then with Dany. I think this prophecy has the potential to drive Dany really crazy, actually.
Yeah.
The way it goes round and round in her head and the way she fixates on things. It seems to be a Targaryen thing to allow a prophecy to get to your head, right? We saw it with Rhaegar. We even see it with Dany the Dreamer, that kind of thing, the original kind of potentially with Aegon the Conqueror as well. So this is something that we we definitely see a strain with the Targaryens. Unfortunately for Quentyn, I think he's already made the decision in this chapter to decide that, right, well, I can't have Dany, I can still get a dragon. I think he already made that decision. I feel like that was kind of, he was like, okay, yeah, no problem, yeah, thanks.
Yeah, she could end up distrusting everyone because of the prophecy and just getting paranoid like Ares. Kind of similar to Melisandre as well. It does, you know, relying on prophecies are so unpredictable. So, you know, maybe as a kind of guiding principle, you can, you know, reflect on things and consider it, but following it to the letter, it just, you know, it's down to interpretation. But yeah.
Yeah, we see it with Stannis and Cersei as well, of course. But yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of evidence as well in this chapter for those who say that Dany is going to go mad. I think there's a lot of evidence in this chapter for that. It would be interesting if we ended up with, you know, chapters from Jon the White and Dany the Insane. I mean, we already get Cersei the Insane, and they're like, they're amazing chapters to read, let's be fair. But Dany the Insane will be very different, I think. It'll be a very different type of insanity. But ironically, the first manly thing Quentyn decides to do costs him his life. Yes. Yeah. If we believe that he's dead. If we believe it. There's a lot out there that suggests he might not be. I don't know. We'll see. The perfume seneschal is a head scratcher, AJ. I agree with you. I don't know what that is yet. There's a lot of them. The other one that I wanted to just mention here, any other Dario theories? Is Dario, I mean, there's a lot of evidence. I see why. I don't buy it necessarily, but I can definitely see why people have the Dario is Euron theory. I think there's a lot of things you could point to in this chapter in particular that may suggest that. But other than that, Dario just seems to be Dario.
Yeah.
He is taking liberties though. Yeah. AJ, I agree. I don't know. I feel like sometimes people are who they are.
Yeah.
When they're not. It is interesting the way she does bring up, you know, Barristan being Arstan, and it could be that Dario is somebody, but not necessarily Euron. I don't think he's Euron, but there may be somebody else in that room that isn't who they say they are. Like Missandei, potentially.
Yeah.
There may be somebody, because things happen in threes for sure. So we have Quentyn lying, being the frog, and we have Barristan. A banana is a banana, AU says. God. More #proper men. Thanks, AU. All right, so we are on to Jon 9 then.
Yeah.
Dany. Jon 9. Okay. I was dozing in and out of this chapter, I have to say. I usually really like Jon chapters, but the last two in particular have been a bit okay. What is the point of the Karstark plotline? What is the? I'm not dissing it, but I would just like to say I'm not. Yeah, we'll definitely get to Patchface for sure, AJ. Karstark.
I think
that they're evil.
It's the potential, isn't it, of being able to unite the North and the Northern Lords with the Wildlings. So, because that's what happens, isn't it? He marries Alice Karstark to the Magno of Fen.
Yeah.
So, I guess that's where that story comes into it, is that there's the potential later on in the future to unite that, you know, the humans, the people who are alive in the North.
The fact that Mel saw her in her fires suggests to me that this is is going to be incredibly important later on. That Alice is going to be very, very important later on, not just the marriage. There's something else going to happen, and maybe it's because she'll unite Karstark and Stark. That's the important thing, to bring those houses back together.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of, like we've talked about it before, there's a lot of stuff that the North remembers. There's also a lot of stuff that the North has forgotten or misremembered, and that there needs to be something brought back together, maybe with the Karstarks and Starks. The fact that she goes to Jon is really interesting. I hadn't really fully appreciated how interesting that is. But yeah, just there's a lot of time dedicated to it. I just wondered. AJ thinks the Karstarks. Oh, hi Laura, how are you? AJ thinks the Karstarks have a big role to play in Stannis's situation. Yeah, absolutely, it could be.
Well, she tells us that the Karstarks plan to turn on Stannis, so that gives Jon the opportunity to maybe try and give Stannis a heads up, which I think is what happens in the release chapter in Winds.
Yep.
I think Stannis dispatches of some Karstarks in that chapter. It also gives us an opportunity as readers to get inside Jon's head when he's thinking about how it really could be Arya, before he walks in and realises very quickly that it's not. But he thinks about Arya, and he thinks about, if it is her, probably the best thing to do would be to send her to somewhere like Braavos, which is hilarious, obviously.
Yes.
And also that, you know, if it is Arya, then he starts planning about, like, well, who's going to protect her? Somebody, you know, somebody, then he needs to get hold of someone that will be able to protect his little sister. And it's like, A, she's in Braavos, B, she doesn't need protecting.
She'll do a better job than you, mate.
Yeah. But again, it gives us that, like, does this mean that he will see Arya at some point? There is a sad tone to Arya's chapter, which is the next one, I think, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the next chapter, where she thinks about seeing family again and whether or not they would recognise her. Yeah. And I don't think that's would they be able to know that it's me because we've not seen each other for a few years? I think that's, I will be wearing somebody else's skin, so won't that be sad that even though I'm interacting with my family, they won't know it's me. So there's you know, there's hints and suggestions of that in this chapter.
Lady Laura, yes, it is beginning to look like Christmas. I have my Lyanna Stark inspired wreath over here, and I've got all of my baubles, my Game of Thrones baubles.
You've got your werewolf, what do you call them? Werewolves?
Oh, my wolves. Yeah, I have them on the shelf. I've started putting Christmas cards up. We started getting Christmas cards already, so start putting them up.
The only Christmas card I've got, and I've not even opened it yet, is from you.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's up on the shelf there somewhere. Yeah, I'm going to save it for Christmas.
Okay, cool.
Or at least a little bit nearer to Christmas. You'll lose.
Yeah. Yeah. I got these baubles in Dubrovnik.
Oh.
And I also have these moonlights because I'm kind of a bit obsessed with LML and his astronomy of ice and fire stuff. So
right.
That kind of stuff. Anyway, yeah, let's talk about Selyse and Patchface.
Yeah, and Tycho.
Yeah, what are your thoughts here?
Patchface says, "In the dark, the dead are dancing." I know. Oh, ho, ho. In the dark, the dead are dancing. So is he able to see what's going on at the other side of the wall? Can he see the whites on the move?
Well, or can he sense the corpses that Jon has?
Yeah.
Are ready to pounce.
In the dark, meaning in down under the wall in the ice cell.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe.
The dead are dancing.
AJ has a question for us. He also said I'm sorry, AJ, I'm not sure, has a family in Dubrovnik, one of the most beautiful cities I've been. I absolutely friggin' love Dubrovnik. It was so beautiful.
Croatia.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
it's one of those, it's kind of like Venice where it's just stuffed during the day with cruise ships.
Oh,
But then
right.
at night, empties. So, like, if you're going to Dubrovnik, stay within the city walls. Like, you're in King's Landing. It's and the people, oh my God, they're so nice. They're lovely. Any Croatians that we met, they were like, yeah, sure, we're very like the Irish. And AJ wants to know, he's a he, and he's half Croatian himself. It's fabulous. I would definitely, we constantly say we'd go back in the morning. It was so beautiful. And we just stayed in this apartment owned by this lovely woman, and it was just amazing. Anyway, the question you wanted to ask, AJ, is do you think Jon is doing a good job as Lord Commander and dealing with the whole Karstark Queensmen situation? Yes and no. I think he's not delegating enough and he's wrecked. He's literally falling asleep. So I feel like he's I think Selyse is just being ridiculous. She's demanding way too much. I am worried about the Iron Bank and the access this potentially gives to someone like Littlefinger to the Night's Watch. I feel like the Iron Bank and Littlefinger are in cahoots. I think Littlefinger is controlling the food. The Iron Bank is now lending out money to places that really need food. So Littlefinger can hike that price way up. And the Iron Bank are going to reap the benefits. It's like a nice little mutual agreement. I think there's definitely shenanigans going on there between the two of them. And I don't think Jon, he's desperate, right? But he has this is where without Aemon and without Sam, he's really stuck. He has no one like intellectually his equal, or at least he hasn't seemed to found anyone actively try to find somebody intellectually his equal. I guess Stannis was the closest.
Or to get any kind of counsel from, or to bounce any ideas from off. So I think he is trying. I think he's got good intentions, but I think they're misled intentions, possibly. And I think he's very, very naive about the men following him just because he stands there and says, we're breathing. It's the dead against the living. I think he's not paying attention to those deep-rooted histories around the northern families being subject to wildlings stealing their daughters, and just there's a lot of history there. And yeah, it does seem ridiculous when you look at the big, helicopter view of what the fuck is going on here. You can see how frustrating things must be for Jon, but at the same time, there are other things that he needs to pay attention to in terms of the landscape that's around him and the men, what their loyalties and motivations will be.
Yeah,
because what he's suggesting just seems bizarre to them. Yeah, I mean, for God's sake, he's got an alcoholic vegan giant roaming around Castle Black like it's nothing, and I mean, even Shireen, and she's usually pretty sort of like, oh, this is interesting, let's learn about this.
Sorry, the hand is coming to deliver coffee.
Hi, Ivan.
Just wait.
But he's got to take into account how shocking and how much of a shock that is to both the Queen's men, to the Black Brothers, to everyone, really. He's not got many allies, and they also, in a way, have reason to mistrust him.
And yeah, I think you're right. And I think, I mean, the whole thing with 1-1 as well, I mean, it's a really nice idea to try and preserve the Giants' culture and to get to know them. But I feel like that's not something you should be doing right now, Jon. I mean, you're ignoring the culture of your own men and their experiences, and the fact that they haven't seen the Whites and they have seen people raid their lands, like the wildlings or whatever it is. The other thing is, oh, sorry, the hand is coming. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. He's waving. He's waving, folks. The other thing is there's a strange line in here with 1-1 about I have a comment on Patchface as well, but there's a strange line in here about 1-1 about how his laugh sounded louder than a dragon's roar, which I wonder, is there a connection there for a reason, which maybe we'll come back to in Arya's chapter as well. And the Patchface stuff.
Can you imagine 1-1 on an ice dragon?
Yes, or 1-1 if someone's skin changed him. If that's possible. If that's possible. Alcoholic vegan giant is a good one, yes, Claire. The other thing I want to say about Patchface, I feel like we have like lots of almost prophet type characters in this book. We have it with what's her name, Jenny of Oldstones. We have like the Woods Witches and things like that, and I think Patchface might be one of those. Damp Hair has the potential to be one of those as well. They're prophet type characters. So that's, I'm not sure if they're necessarily good or evil. Somebody was mentioning that in the chat. And off topic, but Lady Laura is very proud of herself for getting through. She's getting somewhere with Fire and Blood. It's hard to take time to sit down and read it.
It is. I completely agree with you. I'd love nothing more than to be able to just sit down for 3 days and just read it cover to cover. And the 3 chapters that I've read so far, I've not read any this week, but the chapters that I've read have made me want to do that. But it's a big book, and I'm just doing these 5 chapters a week. To be honest with you, it's like I'm fitting that in.
Well, we only have
so it'll be
4
a while.
weeks left of dance. Amazing.
So I'm going to visit the Outlaws at Christmas, so I'm going to take the book with me, and I'm not driving either, so I can.
She's not talking about Dundarian's men or anything like that. Talk about family. I guess it was good for like American readers because it came out 2 days before Thanksgiving, so before the holiday. So I guess if you were cuddled up at home in front of the fire for the long weekend, you could get through it. I cheated. I listened and read. I mixed it up, so I just couldn't wait to get through it. And that is definitely how I'm going to approach Wins, because so many spoilers on YouTube. I was like, damn it.
Oh my God. Right.
So many. Stop putting stuff in
the
the
if I could listen to it in the car on audio, that would be perfect, because I'm in the car for like a 3-hour round trip every day. But I haven't got it. I haven't got the audio version of it, and I can't figure out how to hook that stuff up anyway. So yeah, I'm listening to the. I'm reading it. Sorry, should I say the book?
It's also like, I don't know if everybody else feels like this, but November for me is always the shittest month of the year.
Just haven't got time. Haven't got time for anything, and then all of a sudden you get slapped in the face by fucking Christmas. It's like, come on. Give me a break, Jesus.
It's just it's an awful month, and like I have a couple more weeks left, and then it's like I can breathe. But just craziness. So we have maybe someone was warging 1-1 like Varamyr. Oh my goodness, Connie, that's an interesting idea. Wasn't there a warg there with a big boar? That's why Ghost is in his room. I don't know, Connie.
It could be letters. He is learning words when he kneels in front of Shireen and says, "Little Queen." So he is learning words. Or maybe it is that somebody is skin changing. Interesting.
Do you think Shireen will burn in the books?
I've got a feeling she might. I really hope she doesn't, but I've got a feeling she might. I mean, Mel, wherever Mel is, you've got to be, you've got to be careful. It would be horrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Mel AJ says Mel sees him in her fires. Mel's face darkened. That creature is dangerous. Many a time I glimpsed him in my flames. Sometimes there were skulls about him, and his lips were red with blood. See, that's interesting because he is vegan, so that suggests that he's being maybe perhaps skin changed, to do that. So Lady Laura is saying that the book about the Targaryens is still it's only okay, I guess, and she's just reading the other books now. She's on Clash of Kings. Well, you can go back and catch up with our rereads there if you want. It's definitely different about Roy Dotrice. I preferred the AU. I kind of preferred the guy that's doing it. I'd be interested to know, are they going to use him for...
Oh yeah, you said he was very good. Yeah,
he is very good, but like there's not... I feel like I love Roy Dotrice. I have a soft spot for Roy Dotrice. I feel like he overdoes it with the accent sometimes, and it's a bit jarring. I wonder, are they going to... Yeah, I wonder, are they going to do this? Yeah, I liked him. I thought it felt like a history book. I liked his kind of... It was a very kind of standard Rada type read, if you like. So it was nice. I liked it. All right. Anything else for John then?
Tycho talking about well, I'm like, why would they know this? But Tycho, i.e. the Iron Bank, are talking about pirates at the stepstones, and that this isn't Salador San, because there's some, you know, Salador San's host got broken up as well, and you know there are ships all over the place, really, that neck of the woods. But there are pirates at the Stepstones, and it's not Salador San. So, and that's mentioned a few times as well. And it could be potentially a number of different people. You know, it could be Euron, it could be Waters, it could be who knows.
Sorry, Connie says that Mel was talking about Patchface with the blood on his lips. That's interesting. And yeah, so Connie reckons that's Euron's bunch down at the Stepstones as well. Yeah, I like the fact that he's like, you have somebody from another continent coming over and actively undermining the throne of Westeros. It's quite dangerous that this is even allowed to happen. And it's funny, George was asked, I think at the Fire and Blood interview he gave, I think it was then that he was asked where would he live if he was to live anywhere, and he picked Bravos as his city, which is interesting. Not anywhere in Westeros. So whether that means that they'll be winterproof is another thing. I don't know.
There's a worry there, though, isn't there? With like, John thinks he's great at haggling and that, like, you know, I haggle like a fishwife and all that kind of thing. But he does reflect on the fact that, oh, you know, have I done the right thing here? I was basically indebted the Night's Watch for a long, long time, way past however long it would take, you know, to feed them up to spring. That's got to be a worry. That's got to be a real worry. It's that, like, you know, buy now, pay later. But actually, what is the cost likely to be?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
AJ said that he'd live in the Quiet Isle with the priests. Sounds like a lovely place. I would definitely pick either White Arbor or Old Town. I'm a city person. I like my ale and I like my food and I like my books. So I'd pick either of those two. And Old Town has some good pubs, according to Master Aemon. So, you know.
Yeah.
Probably Old Town. But Annie, let us know in the chat, where would you go? George says Bravos, but I think I'll go with Old Town. What about you, Claire?
White Harbour sounds like a good place. It'd have to be somewhere in Dawn, just because of how women are treated. Possibly Starfall. That'd be interesting. Yeah. That would be interesting. Hang out with the Danes. The Danes for a little while, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was it for.
Yeah, that was it for me
John?
as well. Yeah, I think
The grey girl on the dying horse.
it is with Johnny Be Crazy. We don't want to pick Old Town now. It might not be around for long. Yeah, that's true.
Well, I was going to say that, yeah, if it ends up getting burned down.
Yeah. And well, I'll go at White Arbor. And the Reach sounds nice. I'll give you that as well, AU. Anywhere where there's a good drink, I'll be fine. All right. So we're on to the blind girl. Girl. That was very Irish.
The
The
blind
blind
girl.
girl. I've had to tone down the accent since moving abroad. It creeps out every now and again. The blind girl, which is Arya, of course. Where to start? I love this chapter. You struggled with this chapter.
I didn't get a massive amount out of it, apart from a couple of questions, but the questions are pretty big.
Okay.
Like, for example, and I've kind of thought this before, but never really been able to sort of grasp onto a coherent sort of theory, really. Is Arya, they want her to be, or they're trying to train her to be a servant of the many-faced god?
Yes.
She doesn't seem to be able to do it.
No. Okay, so
is she
my question as well.
Is she the many-faced god is what my question is.
Oh.
Servant of the many-faced god, but is she the many-faced god? And is that why they want her there, and they want to see if, is she able to take instruction? Is she able to be she couldn't be if she is a god, and she is the god of many faces, she certainly had many, many, many names, and that's got to be indicative of something. But I think that maybe the god of many faces isn't necessarily what the followers of the god of many faces think it is.
I think it's like the Azor Ahai prophecy and legend that it can fit a lot of people. And actually, they're probably looking for Bran, not Arya.
Yeah.
That's who they want. In saying that, Arya skin changes into a cat effortlessly in this chapter.
Yeah.
I've said it before. I think she will. I don't necessarily think she needs their faces to. I think she can skin change without their skills, if you know what I mean. She could warg into, or she could skin change a person if she wanted to, but that's way more dangerous. There's a couple of things with Arya in this chapter. We know because of Varamyr Sixskins, we know she's breaking rules in this chapter. She's eating human flesh in this chapter.
Yes.
Through Nymeria.
That is a real worry.
Big no-no.
And she describes it as a beautiful thing.
Well, yeah, and AU says she's not the many-faced god, but she would make the perfect assassin if she can warg or skin change. So this is the thing. They are not like the maesters, the many-faced gods, or the faceless men, I should say. They're not anti-magic. They're anti-dragons and Targaryens and Valyria and slavery and all that kind of thing. That seems to be what they're anti. Now, my thing is, the best way probably for them to defeat a dragon rider and that kind of connection that Targaryens or Valyrians have with their dragons is probably through somebody who can skin change. Like, that's probably the best method. And maybe some prophecy or legend has evolved over the centuries into this faceless men religion. So the many-faced god thing is like a skin changing thing. I think you're absolutely right there. It's not just one person. And I think it has something to do with them. Skin changers are their best weapons against this Targ dragon hybrid that you get, if you like. And that maybe, like, the idea with the giant in John's chapter, the laughter is louder than the dragon. Maybe we'll see a giant being warged, or being skin changed. Maybe the idea is that if there's a Targaryen on a dragon, that you can skin change, you can train somebody to skin change into that dragon while the Targaryen is on it.
Yeah.
That could be a game changer, literally. That could also be where the doom happened, that potentially they turned dragons on one another. That could be something that happened. That the doom was something where dragons started killing dragons, because we do have cannibal dragons and stuff like that, and they don't necessarily, they're not very socialized dragons. But I don't know. There's definitely, they needed to blind her in the same way that Bran needed to be crippled in order to totally heighten those senses. When they say we're heightening your senses, they're talking about, I feel they know, they're talking about her skin changing senses. She doesn't want them to know, but there's no way they don't know, right? They have to know.
Yeah.
She says, oh, maybe I'll tell him tomorrow. But like, I think they already know that. So the other thing,
maybe they don't know it's that strong, and I think you're right, perhaps mistaken identity and they've got the wrong sibling. But her ability to do this is very strong across the continent, and she describes herself as the Night Wolf. So she has two lives almost. When she's dreaming, she is the Night Wolf. She is this character who is a leader and regards men as prey, and which again makes me think, is Arya a leader as Nymeria is? So therefore not a servant of anyone, but has followers, like Nymeria has followers.
Well,
you know, the Grey cousins, and
we've seen it in Arya's arc before, where people latch on to her and follow her, like Hop Pie, like the little girl, the little toddler that was with them in Clash, like kids. There has been like evidence of this where people have latched on to her and followed her. So there's definitely evidence for that. I feel though Arya's is going to.
Sorry, just to add on to that, and then I'll leave it just as a concept. But when Arya is telling the kindly man what she thinks of something, he's asking her what she knows or what she's learned, and she's recounting a couple of examples, and he's kind of saying, look, that's your opinion rather than the facts. But the way he says it is, he says, are you a god to decide? And I'm like, oh my God, is she? Is she a god? Is she the many-faced god? So there are little things like that that are just like, who is Arya in terms of, again, her potential? We know what her skin changing abilities are like. She, like you say, she can slip in and out of this cat really easily. She's even watching through the cat's eyes the conversation with the kindly man. And I think there are some things that he knows, but there are other things that he doesn't know.
But unlike Bran, these things come to her. Like the cats follow her. It's like they're willing, like they want to be skin changed by Arya. It's different to Bran. When he takes you, he takes all of you.
Yeah.
He sends you deep down into a cave. It feels to me like with Arya, there's a very, when she skin changes, there's almost like this feeling, she's not taking me forever kind of thing. And it makes me wonder, like I've said this before, and that stuff about the leader, I think Connie reckons that she might take the debtor from the Iron Bank. That would be a leader that she might take. I've said before, I think there's a chance she could take old Nan. There's also, just with the cats following her, George sometimes isn't that subtle. Sometimes, like this may be foreshadowing her taking Lady Stoneheart.
Maybe.
Now, the only reason I say this is because that's somebody that you could take, and there's not going to be this weird cave-like thing like with Hodor, like this thing where he's like in the upside down or wherever he is, the sunken place. With Arya, I feel like she might take Lady Stoneheart in order to prevent a murder, to prevent Lady Stoneheart from doing something. Like at
Possibly,
Bran.
yeah, it could be just to I don't know. So, yes, take on that burden or whatever it is, or take it away from her mother. It could be just throwing in that when she's thinking about all the different people that she's been, all the different personas and all the different names and everything, and people just can't help it. They keep calling her different names all the time. But she does refer to Cat of the Canals as being the best. So Arya liked being Cat of the Canals better than any other persona that she had, which again makes me think maybe that's going to be a persona that she ends up sticking into. Yeah.
Oysters, clams, and cockles. I think so. I think that definitely. I think there's also there's lots of talks about and you and Stuart reminded me of this last week, I think, about the wildlings from Hardhome, and them
Yes.
becoming slaves. Now, there's every reason to think that slaves that's founded the Faceless Men were of wildling origin. This cannot be the first time that wildlings have come across and become slaves, willingly or otherwise, right?
Yeah.
Then that would explain where we have this kind of knowledge of skin changing and warging within the Faceless Men community, because wildlings were deeply mistrustful of skin changers and wargs. So if you're a warg or a skin changer, it's very likely that you were hunted. You could have been banished from your tribe within the wildlings. So you can either stay in the north or maybe just go. You're sold into slavery or something like that. So like this could all trace back to wildling origins, where we get this idea about warging and skin changing and all that kind of thing. And it feels like to me that the idea of changing faces is it's kind of like the Boltons flaying. They're trying to skin change. They want that skin.
Yeah.
It takes a lot to do that. But for Arya, it's
natural.
Again, it's very natural. It doesn't seem to take as much effort as Bran. I think Bran is extra because he's a green seer as well. He's incredibly powerful, of course. But there's something about the way, like, Bran takes Hodor and Summer very selfishly at times. Arya can't control taking Nymeria. It's almost like Nymeria allows her in.
Yeah.
She welcomes her in. And with the cat, she literally just like jumps in to see who's beating her up and jumps back out. And we don't even really get as much of a description. Like she doesn't outstay her welcome, right? So there's something I don't know, there's something very different about the way Arya does it. If she does it with a person, that'd be
AJ says here, warging and faceless men magic, that's some power right there. It is, and I'm not saying that Arya is a god. I'm saying that maybe they're looking, or the faceless men are looking for a physical manifestation, a champion, if you like, of the many-faced god, and perhaps they're testing Arya and they're pegging their hopes on Arya being this person. But if you think about, I suppose, what it would be like to be a god amongst people, and you would be called a million different names all the time. You probably would be wandering aimlessly without really, before you get to this point of being a follower or a leader, of followers. And I don't know, there's just something there for me about Arya refusing to be a servant of the many-faced god because she's different. She's different as in she's more powerful than they perhaps think she is. And I don't know.
I totally agree with you. I think there are a couple of things that have happened in history that have completely shifted almost on a global level our relationships, our relationship with certain cultural and socio-political ideas and theological ideas. And the French Revolution is one of them. Right up until the French Revolution, which wasn't that long ago in terms of human history, people genuinely believed that there were divinely empowered human beings on Earth.
Yeah.
That there was a right to kings, there's a divine right to kingship. Not only that, but even like 200 or 300 years before that, not even, you had people who believed that
direct line of
saints,
communication. Yeah.
you had people that had saints that were divinely ordained. You know, even in Catholicism, like I grew up, we were told that the priest had the ear of God. That's why you had to go and confess to the priest. I mean, I probably, that's probably still the case, but like just in terms of like kings, but saints and druids and all that kind of thing, they were all kind of seen as having divine links. We are still in like the late Middle Ages, heading into a Renaissance type period in our like Westerosi world, if you like. So this idea that people are divinely kind of chosen, that's certainly there. It's definitely there with the Targaryens. Actually, just to go back to the Lord's right to the first night with the Targaryens on Dragonstone, people would actually ask the Targaryens to enforce that, because you're not handing your wife over to any old lord. You're handing it over to somebody who's got divine properties. They really saw the Targaryens as almost having these divine properties, like magical and divine. They're kind of interchangeable, I feel, in this world. So it's, I don't think it's a big stretch to say that she's seen as godlike. I think like divine is probably the right word to use, because that's what she's seen as. They have a very different idea of that God type relationship.
We are being led to believe that she's being tested constantly by the House of Black and White and the Kindly Man and the Waif, and you know that she has to go through all these different stages and like testing her senses and being blind and getting used to all the different, like, you know, personas and disguises and the mummer's tricks and that kind of thing. But so it feels like she's somehow being enslaved. You know, there's this concept of she is nobody, which is sort of stripping away your humanity. You're here to be a servant to the many-faced God, but she cannot do that comprehensively every single time. Even like, you know, and I think this is actually a good way, and you know, tell me as a teacher, but I think this really is actually quite a good way to learn. Where the child comes back from the session in education and it's okay, so what 3 things have you learned today? It really does push you to be like, oh, right, okay, what do I need to demonstrate that I've progressed in my knowledge today that I didn't have yesterday? But again, even that, she's like, should I tell them that I know that it's snowing in the Riverlands? You know, because I'm the night wolf and I slip into this in my, that's my sort of dream hours. I'm this different person. Well, whether or not they know that, I don't know, but she's not trapped there. You know, he says, they say, do you want to leave? Do you want your eyesight back? Do you want to be, no, maybe tomorrow. So it's not that she's you know, they're not deliberately keeping her there. Maybe they can't do that. Maybe they're not able to do that, because
I don't think they
sort
could,
of, you know, they know who she is and they know what her potential is.
There's probably something built into the Faceless Men, the magic of the Faceless Men, or the creed of the Faceless Men, that means that you can't hold somebody against their will anyway, because they're founded by former slaves. So even when people arrive to die, like, they're giving themselves, they're not like being taken against their will. So that seems to be built into the Faceless Men creed.
Or maybe it is rather than her being a god and her taking on that mantle of being a god, or what other people perceive this god to be, like the Faceless Men. You know, she becomes their like symbolic totem or whatever of their faith. I think that like there's a quote, and I don't know if it's from the Kindly Man or whether it's Arya thinking to herself. I didn't say where it was, but there's a quote which is about being death's instrument or death itself. I don't think she's anybody's instrument. I think she gets her power from Nymeria in terms of, I'm not going to follow anybody. She doesn't, because even when she tries to, she can't do it. She can't do it. She thinks of Jon. She thinks of Winterfell. She thinks of the North. She thinks of Needle. She thinks of all of these things that root her to Arya Stark, to who she is. She is death itself, not death's instrument. And that could make you a god.
Well,
you know, if you can wield that kind of power.
Yeah. They deify death and she just personifies it. I mean, so do a lot of other people in this book. Tywin Lannister, a lot. Like, there's lots of them that just like human beings kill other human beings. It isn't some god working through them. But just in terms of teaching, I do like the whole 3-question check thing, but I think the blinding and the beating works well too.
Yeah,
I might try that.
Stuart's parents, they're retired now, but they were both teachers, and they used to do this. And I was like, oh my god, I don't know how I would react to this given my childhood. But like, they'd all sit round for Sunday dinner, and like, rather than having like, you know, saying grace, it'd be right, how many 50p's are there in £6, and how do you spell jodhpurs?
Really? Oh
Before
my god.
You can like, yeah.
My dad used to do things like that. He's
What's
not
the capital of Australia, so you'd have to answer those 3 questions before you could eat your dinner.
Wow.
How do you spell jodhpur?
So that's a trick question, jodhpur. Yeah,
I bet
especially
you
when you're
lie
like
to
5.
How many so you can buy more polish.
Yeah.
What did he say?
I don't know what you're ranting. What are you saying?
Jodhpur.
Oh yeah. You don't need to tell me how to spell jodhpur. I know.
Oh, but he might be starving, Claire.
Do you want a cup of tea? But yeah,
give him one of the love hearts there.
Yeah, I've eaten one.
I have a question for you. Do you think the fact that Jon and Arya literally have nobody to guide them through this process, like Bran has had Jojen to help him, and also he's been with Rickon, and like they've had this kind of, like, he was with Rickon for a little while, so they hung out with the direwolves, and you probably could see how Rickon was interacting. But Jon and Arya have had no one to help them understand what's happening to them when they skin change and warg, but they understand it very, very well, and they know what's happening. Do you think old Nan prepared them for this?
Yes, through her stories.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I feel like we're going to see her again.
I mean, that would be fantastic.
I think we have to see her again. Arya needs to simmer down, according to Connie. She's impulsive and needs to remember Syrio's basic training. She does. Syrio's stuff does come back to her every now and again, but yeah, she thinks about her legs getting big. She's growing, so her legs are getting longer and leaner, which is much better for her for her water dancing. I have to say, 1,000 mentioned with the dead woman's skin looks like it had been folded 1,000 times. There was a quote, I think I was watching one of Rory's videos this week, and she was talking about, it was just before she got deep into Fire and Blood, and I kind of switched out the video, but she was talking about an interview that George had given recently, or some sort of quote where he was saying he's finishing Winds of Winter, he's in some kind of secret mountain location where he can't be disturbed, and he's struggling with it. He's kind of admitted now recently a few times that he's really struggling with Winds. And he talks about how Fire and Blood was a lot easier to write because it's a linear history and it's just focusing on one family, whereas in Winds it really is like every single chapter could be like a mini book. You've got the character and then all the tertiary characters around a different landscape, a whole different history and descriptions of everything. So it's really, really difficult to do individual chapters in Winds. But within all of this, he was describing, he was like, oh yeah, it's 1,000 times easier to write Fire and Blood, and oh, it was 1,000. He referenced this 1,000 as being this kind of ridiculous
insurmountable number that's just, you know, that, so that's what he, and I'm like, is it really that he just uses that for a creative person? You know, if you're asked to describe a certain number of something, if all you can say is, oh, it must be a dozen this and a dozen that and a dozen, or you stick on a certain number, is that just a limitation thing there? Is that just the way he describes certain things in terms of length of time being a long time? Or is he dropping a ton of clues here, left, right, and centre, about this figure 1,000 being really significant? And I just thought, well, what could that actually be in reality? Like a real big picture thing that he's constantly throwing these clues, so that in 10, 12 years' time, we'll look back and go, oh my God, the amount of times, you know, there's even 1,000 eyes and one, and not, you know, oh my God, why didn't we see it? It could be something to do with the seasons. It could be something to do with the fact that history is really screwed up and we really struggle in this world to put a definitive number on. This is when this happened in history. My massive discrepancies. This was either 3,000 years ago or 30,000 years ago. Depends on which Meister's volume version of blah, blah, blah that you read. And it just, I'm like, is there something here about, there's a determinate amount of time in Westeros, like 1,000 years, where all of this history and things to develop and whatever, and then some magical occurrence happens every 1,000 years that just resets the clock and nobody can remember, or the details of what happened in those previous 1,000 years are somehow lost, whether it's the doom or a great big cosmic event that just kind of wipes everything out, and it's like, oh right, okay, we have to try and kind of, but you would remember that 1,000 years, would you, in this world? Would you necessarily know?
Because there's certain things that when you read World of Ice and Fire and then you read Fire and Blood and then you go into the books, there's certain misinformation. It's only a certain amount of people writing these things down. I do think there is probably significance to the 1,000. Yeah, because he mentions it so much, and because he spends so long writing everything. He pores over, like, I know I've mentioned it before, but that his face when Stephen King says that he has to write 6 pages a day, and George is like, 6 pages a day.
Yeah.
Like, he can barely get a page.
Yeah.
It's just the difference is in the writing. Yeah. Like, I mean, not that Stephen King isn't great, but I think he's a better storyteller maybe than a writer. Whereas George, you can definitely see, like, he's poured over his words, and especially coming from, because we've read Game to Dance in quite a quick time, 18 months or something, less maybe, and you can see that the detail has like exponentially increased from Game, where there's like little editing things that are mistakes compared to Dance. But I mean, even then, like, you know, the joke thing with Tyrion somersaulting in John 1 in a Game of Thrones, that might not be a mistake. That just might be the way John remembers it, right?
Yeah.
This really impressive, intellectually impressive person is automatically equates to him being physically impressive. And what you'd expect from a dwarf maybe in this time. So, you know, the POVs may not be completely neutral, but I do feel he uses 1,000 too much for it not to be important, I think.
We'll see.
And just your comment on wins there as well. I mean, what was the name of the chapter, the last chapter, the Damphair chapter, The Forsaken. I mean, it's one of the best short story horrors I've ever read. It did read like a short story in and of itself. So Connie reckons their 1,000 is 1,000,000. For example, Doria tells Dany 1,000,000 dragon came from the moon that cracked. Yeah, it could be that simple. It could be that George is like, he's a bit older than we are, Claire, so maybe 1,000 for him growing up was quite a lot. Whereas, you know, for us maybe it's 1,000,000. for the next generation, it might be 1 billion. You know, that might be
Thanks a million, as my mum always says on the phone.
That's thanks a million. That's what Irish people say. But we do say 1,000 welcomes.
Yeah. I like your idea about the wildlings being more linked to the anti-slavery history in Braavos.
Yeah.
Because I think, how horrific must that be if you're in somewhere like Hardhome, which is a harsh environment enough, and you're praying and praying and praying to be rescued. Along come some ships and you think, yay, finally, we're going to be out of here in this horrible, horrible situation that we found ourselves in. We're going to have this new life on the other side of the narrow sea, and then you're immediately sold into slavery as soon as you get on the ship.
I mean, Hardhome is cursed, like we talked about last week. So it could be that was a slaver hub, and there could have been some insurrection or rebellion there of some sort. But I definitely think that that's probably where the Faceless Men know about skin changing and warging. We don't really hear of it, like outside of the north. It doesn't seem to be something that's known, right? It doesn't seem to be something that we.
It's not talked about a lot, is it? No.
Yeah, I'm guessing that goes back to wildling culture and the north of Westeros. That's why it would have to. I'm guessing. Isn't that why the Andals escaped slavery from ASOS? ASOS is the shopping site. Maybe they were in ASOS shopping. Maybe they missed Black Friday. I can't remember AU. Gosh, I need to bone up on little things like that because I cannot remember. There's so much as well. It's easy to see why George gets overwhelmed. Like I'm just reading it and I'm overwhelmed.
Yeah.
I don't know how he copes with it. On top of everything else that he does. So he's also
he's got like Elio and Linda are like human encyclopedias, aren't they?
Yeah.
So he can reference, and I think he does a lot about, history and what people were wearing and how tall they are and things like that. They've got all that information for him.
Yeah, they've been great for a long time now, right? So that is the blind girl. So I guess we are on to the Ghost in Winterfell.
Yeah.
And I mentioned this earlier on with just briefly, Roose. What's Roose up to? I mentioned this last week as well. I'm not entirely sure Roose is on the side we think he's on. This reread I've changed my mind about Roose. First of all, he's keeping Theon very close. Theon is privy to a lot of confidential material here.
Yeah.
We know that there's a connection here with Dustin. I think Roose is regretting allowing Ramsay to climb so far. I think he knows that there's problems, there's divisions. And it wouldn't surprise me if we found out that Roose is playing two sides.
That wouldn't surprise me either, actually. He's
very confused by him.
I mean, he is trying to get everyone to stop squabbling, isn't he? At the conversation that they have at the end, where they're kind of having these, this sort of murder investigation on all these dead men that are turning up, and everyone descends into fractions and infighting, but he's kind of telling everyone to stop. But it just seems to, something else has got his attention, not necessarily. He doesn't seem that threatened by Stannis. He doesn't seem that threatened even by the infighting within the walls of Winterfell. I don't know what he wants. I don't know. But maybe you're right. Maybe he is going to, Turncloak.
I don't know. There's something not quite right. AJ says, I think Roose's days are numbered. I prefer dumbered. Can we make that a word? I like that, AJ. I know it was a typo, but dumbered is AU says it as well. Dumbered is great. I think he realizes that's exactly what he's been saddled with his bastard of a son. Dumbered. who is very dumb, actually. Ramsay is kind of stupid as well. And like Bruce is like, let's keep a lid on these murders and let's not like tell everybody. And of course, Ramsay tells everybody, and he's creating panic. And he's an idiot. He's an idiot. And yeah, as Sonny reminds us last week, Roose said that Ramsay will kill any children that Roose has anyway. So it's basically, it seems like he's, I don't know. I wonder, is Roose more savvy as to what the threat is coming, like the threat that's ahead of them? And anyway, that's, I don't know. But the other thing I wanted to talk about is there any chance that Reek is the murderer? Is there any chance that he's the one doing this?
What, you think he's in some sort of like trance, or he's being
that he's created this split personality, maybe?
Could be, yeah. So there's some sort of Fight Club thing going on inside Winterfell. It could be, but I think, well, this is a classic chapter. We've got to just stop and pause and recognise the writing in this chapter. It's actually shorter than a lot of the other. I expected it to be a lot longer, and it wasn't as long as I thought it was going to be. The atmosphere in terms of George's horror writing is really switched on in this chapter. So we get the sense of this merciless snow. The fact that they've got guide ropes, you know, to get across the yard from what, so it's just, you can only see white anywhere. You get up to the top of the battlements and that's all there is. So you're extremely vulnerable. If you're in, and let's remember that this is Stark's castle, and there are no Starks even within the walls at the moment, unless you count somebody that I'll come to in a second.
Yes,
but
I know who that is.
But it's the atmosphere is built up in a phenomenal way here. So the northern lords and the Northmen that are inside the walls are talking about how they feel cursed. I mean, they would have seen this kind of winter before, at least some of them, but it seems even more oppressive and overwhelming than even they've experienced before in the past.
And that's
they think they've been cursed by the old gods, which I think they probably have.
And that's probably in large part due to the fact that since Robert's rebellion, they haven't had such a series of like devastating wars, one after the other, that has left many of them like just completely defeated before winter even begins. They don't have enough food. They don't have their morale is at an all-time low. There's so much instability. At least with Robert's rebellion, by the time winter started, some like normality had somewhat been restored, right? Because Rhaegar takes Lyanna in the fall spring, is that right? Oh no, sorry, it was before summer actually that Robert took. So it would have been summer. Winter came back. So yeah, so they haven't had war like this
for a long
prior
time.
to Winter for a long time. So I feel like there's a line in here about Stannis potentially ending up, I can't remember if it's in this chapter, if it was in a previous chapter, Stannis ending up buried within the walls of Winterfell. And it feels like the way they're all looking for the crypts and things like that. I'm kind of liking.
Yeah, why? Why the hell does Mance and? Oh well, I think it's more. Whenever you see the washerwomen or the spear wives come in to give messages to or trying to get information from Theon, that's Mance. So all of that has to be tracked back to Mance. So why does Mance want a trip into the crypts? And going back to what I said earlier, is Mance the Stark in Winterfell at the moment? And does there have to be a Stark in Winterfell to somehow manifest the old god's power? So the fact that Mance is there in Winterfell, because I think Mance is a Stark bastard, like Jon, that's where the connection is between the two. I think the Starks just traditionally sent their bastards to the Wall, and Mance was one of them. So if he has the Stark blood in him, does he, maybe even Mel knows this, that he has to be within the walls of Winterfell for there to be a Stark in Winterfell, for Winterfell almost to kind of defend itself by, we're cursed, the old gods, this is, that everyone's being murdered, nobody knows if it's like an accident, they're all covering up for each other, or they're taking a jab at each other, the Mandleys and the Freys, there's this, like, would that be happening naturally anyway, or is this something to do with Winterfell, and is it something to do with the old gods and there being a Stark in the close proximity?
So I think, well, Mance sees himself as a bit of a Bale the Bard type character. So it could be that he's trying to find a way of letting wildlings in. Bran, that could be one way. It could be a very human reason. I do like Robert. I mentioned this before. Robert from In Deep Geek has a theory that there has to be a Stark at Winterfell in order for the old kings of the North to be released. Their spirits will act as a defense against the others.
Which again, maybe that's why why Mance wants to go down and check out the crypts.
Well, and it might also tie to that Stannis within the wall, dead within the walls of Winterfell, because that might be a nice way for Stannis to actually fulfill his duty as a king if he's a dead king in the walls of Winterfell. Maybe it's not just the Stark thing. Maybe it's a king's dead. Maybe it's like it's like the yin and yang kind of R'hllor, where they burn kings as a sacrifice. Maybe it's any king's blood within the walls of Winterfell will be the ghost of that king will be a protective force in there.
I just have a feeling that there's something that Mance was saved for a reason.
Yes,
he could have burned quite easily, just like he did in the TV show. I think he was saved for a reason. I think that I think this is more of a personal journey relating to his history. If you think about the songs that he's referenced to, the songs that Mance or Abel was singing, the Iron Lances, Winter's Maid. There's another one as well about winter, about something to do with a woman, Lady of Winter, or something to do with a woman and winter. And I think this is something to do with Mance's history, and I think he was banished as a Stark bastard from Winterfell to the Wall, and maybe this is his way of saying, look, you got rid of me, but me being here helps with this and that and the other, it helps them turn against each other. Whoever the Stark's enemies are, if I'm here and I'm I've got Stark blood running through me and I'm in Winterfell right now, then this is only going to help, because he stays, doesn't he? Well, he doesn't, he doesn't escape with Theon and the other women. He's like, no, leave me here.
No, he stays for sure. So, but I think this has more to do with this legend of Bale the Bard, that the wildlings that Ygritte spends so much time. It's like one of the first things she talks to Jon about.
Yeah.
And I wonder, maybe Mance does know this. There's a couple of ways of looking at this. Maybe Mance does know this. And this is going to be his way of releasing the Stark bastard, not him, but Jon, because that's what happens with Bale the Bard, right? The bastard of Winterfell is brought back into Winterfell and gives Winterfell back its Stark, its heir. So that may be one way he could let Jon in later on. He's trying to find a way in that Bran talks about, that Bran says Maester Luwin didn't even know about this way into Winterfell. I know about it. Nobody else knows. And Bran could be trying to tell Theon, and then Mance is getting that through Theon or whatever it is. There's other ways of looking at this. If people really like the Mance Rhaegar theory, that this is all part of the prophecy. there's something about releasing whatever it is down there, proving Jon's birthright potentially. If there's a crypt down there, that's maybe Mance Rhaegar or Arthur Dane. This feeds into both of those theories, because this will prove who Jon is, and this will get the actual Stark of Winterfell. Because things are pretty shit inside, literally. Like, they have horses in the hall. There are people just there's people just shitting in the hall. Like, it's really bad. Like, they're gonna start getting sick soon. It's not very, very good at all.
No.
But there's lots of chat about this in the chat. Connie wonders maybe Theon or Reek could be, maybe he's been warged by somebody and murdering that way, potentially. AJ loves the Abel is Mance reveal. Yeah. Connie said, Ned thinks very early when he's in the crypts and swords had rusted away to dust, old kings lapse, and he reflects their ghosts roaming around Winterfell. AJ says, we know that Mance was at Winterfell at the beginning of the first book when the feast was with the Starks, when they were hosting with the Lannisters. Yeah, that's right. I think Stannis is about to take Winterfell but gets killed by Dany. Interesting. And Connie says maybe Mance is looking for the Lord's escape tunnel. Lewin mentioned in Theon when he took over Winterfell, Mance may know of them. Yeah, I think there has to be, I feel like whatever is in the crypts, I think there will have to be some sort of blood sacrifice in order to find whatever is down there, or release whatever is down there. I think there will have to be some sort of blood sacrifice for that. Because even when Winterfell was taken, it was almost like the crypts were able to protect themselves and protect Bran and Rickon down there. It could be it could be that Stannis is operating under some other prophecy that we don't know about. It could be that he knows that he needs to be the one sacrificed within those walls. There's a lot maybe going on. The other thing that's interesting about this chapter is Theon's complete flip to the old gods. He is completely on board with that religion now. To the point where
there's something that washes over him, that when he lifts his head up and he gets the snow on his face and he says he feels almost at peace.
Like a baptism.
Yes. Yeah. It's there's some sort of submission going on there. He's submitting to the old gods.
And he even says at some stage they're talking about their plans, and he thinks, oh, I hope the old gods don't hear that. You shouldn't say that kind of thing within earshot of the old gods. And the way he is wandering around to all the murder sites. Yeah, Connie suggests that maybe the murders are blood sacrifices. Yeah, this red smile is kind of very creepy. It feels like they're almost being, like a weirwood smile is being drawn on their faces or something.
Right, before we get to it, just to give you a bit of extra time in the chat, let's have your who is the hooded man theories. Let's get it all out in the open. Let's just go for it. But before we get there, so have a think. Let's see what you say in the chat. Who is, in your opinion, who is the hooded man? We'll get back to it. But just before we do that, a ghost in Winterfell. And Theon he's reflecting a lot here, and he's thinking about, again, it's that conflicted personality that George is really good at describing. But he's thinking about his past, isn't he, and all the horrible things that he did when he was the Prince of Winterfell, and all the angry ghosts that he personally is responsible for creating. But there is something there, again, about just his description of that. Angry spirits that are not at rest, that somehow need, I don't know, they need to do something. There's a reason for this. So yeah, who do you think, Kat? Who do you think the hooded man is?
I'm trying to look up his name because I completely forgot him. The kid that Arya meets with Dondarrion, is it Harwin? What's his name?
Ned.
No.
The
young guy he recognizes her in the inn.
Oh,
What's his
yeah,
name?
Harwin.
Harwin. It is
Yeah.
Harwin. Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's him. I think that's him.
The only thing that I think,
Although I much prefer the answers in the chat.
Alice Mullin, yeah, he heard a theory
Alice Mullin?
yeah, Blackfish. Blackfish is a good one.
Blackfish would be brilliant. I much
Would
prefer that.
the Blackfish be recognised? I mean, this is it. It's a hooded man, so whether or not he's in disguise, I don't know. The only thing that I noticed on this reread was the description of him striding. So whoever it was, this hooded man, he wasn't in the. I always had this perception of a hooded man in disguise. He's hiding in the shadows, and he's kind of like, "Oi, Turncloak." But no, he basically bumps into it, like they're kind of on a collision course, because whoever this hooded man is, he's striding towards Theon with a purpose, which means to me that he's not in disguise, he's out in the open, he's striding with a purpose towards somewhere, and he just like, oh, bumps into Theon, and it's like, oh, you know, how is it Turncloak, how is it you still breathe, you know, that. Yeah.
I think I remember back to that Arya chapter with Harwin, and he recognizes Arya straight away, and she's a bit surprised by that.
Yeah.
And I think that's foreshadowing the fact that he recognizes Theon straight away. Plus, I get your point about the Blackfish being recognizable, whereas Harwin may not be, because there aren't that many people, like there aren't that many Stark people around, and he may not have been that memorable a person. Plus, he's been through quite a bit now at this stage himself. And we know that he was heading north, I believe. I believe he was heading back north. I do like the Blackfish theory. Who's Alice Mullin? I don't know who that is.
One of Ned's men, I think.
Oh, okay. The hooded man is shocked to see Theon. That has to be important. The fact that I feel like the Blackfish would have just killed Theon. Whereas Harwin knows what Boltons are capable of.
If it's someone who's shocked to see, nobody should be shocked to see Theon, because they should have all. I mean, they were invited there for the wedding. It's just that the weather took such a bad turn that they're all holed up there now. They can't go anywhere else. So whoever is in the walls of Winterfell at the moment has been there right from the beginning of the wedding, which was that was a while ago. We know from a time frame point of view that, well, roughly, that when Stannis's troops set out from Deepwood Motte, that they reckoned that the march would take them about 25 days, and it's been probably about 3, 4, maybe even 5 times as long as that. So it's been a good few weeks / couple of months that everyone's been holed up at Winterfell. So if this person, whoever it is, was shocked to see Theon, then it's somebody who's managed to get inside Winterfell after everybody else has gone, oh yeah, that's Theon Greyjoy, and he's actually, he was there to corroborate fake Arya, but he's now kind of descended into just, Ramsay Bolton's plaything again.
Whoever it is doesn't realize until that moment what has happened to him.
Yeah.
AJ thinks Harry and Karstark. I'm afraid I don't know enough about Harry and Karstark to know if that could be a possibility. Connie, Harwin was with the BWB. I don't know if he's with Lady Stoneheart, and even if he is with Lady Stoneheart, there may be time for him to have already been at Winterfell if she sends him there.
I think Harry and Karstark is Alice's brother, and he's missing. He's gone missing.
The other person, this is way out there. The other person, it could be, but maybe not. This is really way out there. Jane Westerling's brother. The Radio Westeros have a theory that he maybe survived with Grey Wind. This mad theory. I don't know how this works, but that there's no body when they go to find, what's his name, Robin Westerling.
So Rob has somehow
something like that,
walked into Jane's brother.
No. That he is still alive. That this Westerling kid is still alive, but why he would know Theon. Oh, he would know. No, the Westerlings came after Theon.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's just something that jumped into my head. No way provable. The other one that it could be, is there any chance it could be Benjen?
Well, that's another well-established theory, isn't it? That it could be Benjen. I think Benjen's on a quest somewhere else, to be honest with you. To me personally, just the fact that he was striding with a purpose. This is either somebody who's got into Winterfell recently, or it's just he's just a Northern Lord that, you know, it. I don't know. It's dropped in there, isn't it? It could be a red herring. Who knows?
I feel like it had to be. It has to be someone who knows Theon well, or it's a what's his name? It's the Brad Pitt to Theon's Edward Norton. That's like it's right, the ghost.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
like it's
he
because he
ghost.
calls himself Turncloak so much as well. In previous Reek chapters, that it's a manifestation of this split personality that he's developed.
That's Theon and Theon in this chapter is Reek.
Maybe. I don't know. I think it's definitely a person. I think I like the Harwin. I love the Blackfish idea though. Then would the Blackfish be that Tyler Durden, that's what I was trying to think of. Thanks, AU. Would the Blackfish be that familiar with Theon? I feel like the Blackfish would just kill him. I think it has to be a northern person because the red smiles just feels very Weirwood northern. It feels like something a northern person would be doing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who did Rob dispatch to Greywater Watch?
Oh God, it was a Glover and a Mormont.
Yeah. Where did Jason Mallister go? He was to go back home, was he?
I don't know. Can't remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. Brain shutting down now.
The fact that it's the ghost in Winterfell, I feel like it's maybe someone that we thought was dead. Maybe it could be, I think maybe somebody that we thought was dead, and or Theon himself. But I do like the Black. I think the Blackfish is doing something else though.
Yeah, I think the Blackfish is with Jane Westerling somewhere.
I also think it's. I feel like it has to be someone from the north. It sounds like they're recreating a Weirwood on their face. It sounds like
that would, yeah. There's a hint of that it could be Howland Reed. That's another, the popular theory is the Blackfish and Howland Reed. Anyone who's missing, basically. But I don't think he's not big enough, is he?
I don't think it's Howland Reed. I don't like. It has to have been someone who developed a relationship with Theon. And knows that this is not the Theon who took Winterfell. This is like, I feel like if it was the Blackfish or Howland Reed, they would have just killed him straight away. Because why not? I mean, they're killing everybody else. Like, why not kill him? I think this is somebody who's looked at him very quickly, realized, oh, but you are not the Theon Greyjoy I remember. So this is somebody who's had a relationship with Theon. It could be somebody
Mage Mormont dressed as a man, could be.
Possibly. I mean, the Mormont women have quite masculine qualities anyway, so that's totally possible.
Calls him a Turncloak and Kingslayer. Yeah.
Harry and Karstark, AJ says. Harry and Karstark. I don't know enough about Harry and Karstark, so
we get to the end of this chapter, and we've got Roose Bolton, Barbary Dustin, and one of the head phrase carrying out this murder investigation. So Theon is marched off in front of them, and they determine that he's not strong enough to carry these things out, whether it's mentally or physically, he's just not strong enough. So they descend into just bickering. You know, it's the Freys, it's the Manderleys, and Roose. He tells everyone to stop squabbling, and then we get the horn, and Stannis is here. Stannis is here, and in the middle of all of this furore about the horns blowing. I mean, is this? I don't know. Is this Stannis? Because Stannis, it feels as though he's
no, it's not Stannis.
Further away. It can't be Stannis, can it?
No, it's not Stannis.
Isn't it? I think we find out, don't we? Isn't this some trick by the Umbers? Anyway, we'll find out. But in the middle of all of this, Theon finds himself in front of a heart tree. At the end of the chapter, where Bran's face seems to be carved into the tree. Again, this is Theon in Theon's interpretation of all of this, and he does seem to be suddenly submitting to the old gods. This
is the problem. We've no idea what Bran is trying to do here.
Yeah.
We have no idea if Bran is even looking to help or looking for help. This is the problem, and this is George's problem. How does he rectify this deity within a tree? But how does he reconcile that with? How does he make that work in real world events? And
Theon just hopes for a warrior's death. He's telling the washerwomen to kill him, and they're kind of clearly they were listening into what he was saying. They were listening to what almost he was pleading / praying, and they talked about sacrificing him to the tree there and then. But then, you know, obviously Abel's waiting for him, so that's what happens next.
There's I mean, and this is where Theon starts to hatch that plan of escape as well. He starts thinking about escape in a very real way. And this is like our last kind of our next chapter is Theon. He's back to Theon. It seems like Roose is trying to get him back to Theon. Roose seems to be, like, even in this murder investigation, like, they know it's not him, but it feels like it's a charade that they're putting on, like, to maybe build his... This sounds a bit weird, but to build up his ego and to think, like, to give him the impression, oh, we still think you're capable of these kinds of things. We don't think Ramsay has broken you. Like, we think, like, it's almost like they know he didn't do it. It's not even a real investigation. It feels like it's almost like a confidence building thing or something. Like, this, like, oh, you're still capable of being a badass. Can you wield a sword with 4 fingers? I think you can. They seem to think you can't, but I think probably Davos probably tell you that you can. Maybe. But yeah, it seems to be somebody's messing with Ramsay for sure. Again, don't trust Roose. No.
But I mean, if any of them are cursed by the old gods for breaking every single rule that you can possibly think of, it's Ramsay.
It's Ramsay, yeah. It is Ramsay, yeah.
And I think, and also with the Freys, I think that would be amazing if they're riding out to battle and they've got the Freys, the Freys are at the front, the Manderleys are the kind of rear guard, and they're running up to, and they just end up disappearing into some frozen lake, and the Manderleys kind of backing up and like, oh, I think more that would be more like the old gods sort of retribution for the Red Wedding. It's just the winter just swallows them up. That's it, frozen, dead. You're never getting out of that. Yeah, you're done.
Absolutely.
And they all get in. They all go into. They're all weighed down by the chainmail and everything. And that's just a frozen lake of Freys.
Winterfell is rejecting them. Like it's like it's not even like the snow collapses the stables, and there's lots of horses and men killed, and it's like the actual structure of Winterfell. It's we don't want your new stables here. You can't just add on stuff. We are
Yeah.
Winterfell. This is like
just the whole thing collapses.
Yeah. And Connie says that Theon saved Bran's life early on with a well-placed arrow, so Bran won't let him die. Yeah. But Bran might give Theon the gift of death that he sorely wants.
A hero's warrior's death.
Let him die a man. Yeah. So that's all I've got anyway for Ghost in Winterfell. Next week we are Tyrion 10 to Theon 1, so we're back to more Theon chapters next week. I guess
we've got a Jon and a Dany chapter in there as well.
Is there a Barristan chapter in there too? When are we getting Barristan and Quentyn again? I feel like maybe it's in their last couple of weeks.
I think that's really sort of towards it. In fact, I think that's after she's gone. That's after she leaves Marine.
Right. Okay. We have coming up. I'm just checking now. We have 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we've only 4 weeks left, guys. We'll be taking a 2-week break over Christmas because I'm in Ireland. But yeah, we've only 4 weeks left. Coming up, so I'll be actually our last weekend. I will have just seen Kit Harington in the West End. He's in a new play, sporting a bit of a dodgy mustache. But I'm looking forward to that. So so that'll be our last weekend. Next weekend I'm in Dusseldorf, so I might be a bit hungover again next weekend. But sure, anyway. I won't. I'm going shopping with best mate, so that should be fun.
I'm just looking at the names of the chapters. So Theon 1 next week. So we've had Turncloak and the Prince in, we've had different named chapters, and we've had Reek. We've had a few, and this is the first Theon 1. So this is when Theon gets his kind of Ironborn Lord Theon, heir of the Iron Islands kind of thing back on again. Although he's like a son of the North now, really, isn't he?
Yeah. It's funny because we have only 4 weeks left, but I feel like we have like 3 Barristan chapters at the end of Dance. Maybe I'm misremembering that.
I think there's one that's quite long, the one where he goes for his star.
Yes,
I think that might, and there's a lot of backwards and forwards with the Shave Pate and Barristan, so I think I've got a feeling that's all in one chapter. But it's definitely after Dany's gone, because it's like, oh my god, what's happening in Marine without her being there? And you see that through.
So Dany must only have 1 chapter left, right? Oh, I never asked. God, I completely forgot to say that in the Dany chapter. Is she pregnant? Because she's glowing in that chapter. They remark on her glowing.
Oh.
So I think she's already pregnant, maybe, in that chapter.
Maybe. Maybe. Yeah.
Which kind of might add to the little lustiness, the hormones.
Yeah, could be. So this is Dario then, isn't it?
Yeah, Dario's kid,
Maybe that's why she ends up having a miscarriage.
Yeah.
Because that was never meant to be.
She's definitely glowing in that chapter. I meant to mention that. But 4 Barristan chapters. Thanks, AJ.
Wow.
There's loads of Barristan chapters coming up. They're all kind of like jammed into the end. And we have a couple of Quentyn chapters as well. So anyway, guys, that's all coming up. I hope you all have a great week. Thanks for joining us. AJ, thanks for joining us. It's great for you to come along and have the chat with us. So and thanks to all the new subscribers and everything. I've had a few this week, so that's great. So what are you laughing at?
I'm just laughing at AJ saying, imagine having a dad called Dario.
I know.
Do you remember, what was that awful reality TV star singer, Dario something or other? And he did.
Yeah, that's right.
He was at a Christmas market a couple of years ago. I wasn't there, but my sister was there, and he was like walking around the stalls. Darius, that's it, not Dario. Darius Dinesh, or whatever he's called. And he was doing all this, like, he was just up himself. And one of the other traders had asked for, because they're always like, have you got any change? Have you got any change? And nobody had any change. And it was like somebody had mentioned something and I can't remember how it went, but anyway, my sister ended up approaching him, and he kind of turned round and was like, oh, hi, do you want my autograph kind of
Oh
thing.
no.
You know, it was one of those like, do you know who I am?
Oh,
and my sister had very much a similar type of reaction. She just went, oh no, and kind of stepped back. So yeah, it just reminded me of that. Having a dad called Dario, who, yeah, he wasn't, yeah, no, one of those people that's like, no, yeah, but that was Darius, not Dario, Darius. But there you go.
Yeah. Yeah. And guys, I'd recommend as well, because I'm having nice fun with it during the week. Geek Chat 1. JR is doing an amazing job over there running that on Facebook and YouTube and Instagram and all that kind of thing. So yeah, recommend it. It's good for the community to hang out over there, chatting about books and con stuff and all that kind of thing. There's another UK con coming up as well in, I want to say, May as well. I won't be going to that one. It's in Kent, I think, but it's like 12 quid or 15 quid or something. So it's really cheap. And there'll be the guy who plays Syria Farrell. He'll be at it. And, the guy who played Pycelle. No, not Pycelle. Yes, I think it's Pycelle. He's going to be at it as well. So yeah. So looks pretty good. So I can't remember what it's called, but yeah. But yeah, well, I'll be doing that. You see, if somebody tips me on the shoulder, I'll automatically assume it's an autograph they'll be looking for. I'll try and keep your fans away from you, Claire.
Oh my god.
Anyway, guys, I will talk to you all next week. Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you. And yes, catch you next week, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.